Hello and welcome to the last step. In this video I'm going to show you how to optimize your web page to look good on tablet and mobile devices. Before I do that, we're just going to finish off working through these different contact methods in the contact section. They do relate to mobile optimization a little bit in places, so that's why I've put it at the start of this video. So to the left, when we click on the WhatsApp icon box, we could add a link where it says link. However, in the free version of Elementor, there would be no point because it wouldn't make that a button that linked to a browser's WhatsApp on their mobile device. We can add a mobile number in the text that allows them to manually put that in WhatsApp on their device, be it a mobile or whatever, and then they could just text as you would expect. I can make you aware though that Elementor Pro does come with that functionality. It's something called Action Links. So if you were interested in that, because WhatsApp is so popular, you could do that with Elementor Pro. Next, the email icon box. If we want to make this a button, we would type mail to : and then the email address that you would want people to make inquiries to. That obviously is just a made up one just for these purposes. That means that if somebody clicks on that email box now, it would automatically open an email in whatever email client they use. Microsoft Outlook, it could be Google, Gmail, G Suite, or whatever. What I'm showing here in the Advanced tab under Responsive is that we can actually hide it on desktop. And you may be wondering why we want to do that. Well, let me just show you some options. Let me duplicate it and just make another one to show the example. Let's say we don't want it to be a button. Let's say that you just want to list your email address. Some people might prefer that. Certainly some people that I've built websites for just wanted to list the email and then somebody can copy it and paste it into their email or whatever. I personally would make a button, but that's just me. The only thing I would note though is that on very rare occasion we have known it that when somebody presses the email button on a desktop, for whatever reason, their web browser settings don't allow for an email to be automatically opened. So it is something just to bear in mind, is that. So let me just show here, we're just going to start to work into mobile optimization. I'm actually going to hide the first email icon box and show the second, like that. So that's just an example of how if you just want to list the contact details, no buttons, no fancy links, you can. This also demonstrates how we can obviously change the response of the widgets so that they show on desktop or not, and they show on tablet or mobile or not, which we'll come to in a moment when we start to look at the tablet and mobile versions. Here I'm just doing the same thing for the call button. I just made it a call button by typing tel, as you can see, : and then the phone number. You might put an international code plus whatever the code is, lose the 0 and then the number if you're expecting international contact from people. Because that there is actually not a button now, it's just listing the number, I'm going to hide it on tablet and mobile, I'm going to keep it shown on desktop. You could obviously do any which way you want to do this. I just want to give you all the different options. So now we've done those contact methods on the contact section, we probably just need to go up to the header where there is obviously other calls to action for call and email. Right now these are buttons. When the template was created, I explained, I think there is another example email address in this one, if I recall. So we're going to do the same thing here. You'll see in a second. I'm just going to duplicate it, much like we did in the contact section. I'm just going to show you it's exactly the same up here in this part of the website. I'm going to hide the one I've just created on tablet and mobile because I'm going to make this also just list the email address. So right now what I've done is hidden it on tablet and mobile, as you can see. I'm going to remove that link in there and I'm just going to enter the example email address that I used down in the contact section. So now that no longer is a button, the one we just created, it simply lists the email. For consistency purposes, also something else, we're going to change the hover colour. I'll just show you that's how it looks. I'm going to change the hover colour because obviously if it hovers and it changes colour, you're making people think it's a button when it isn't. And again, that's just personal. It's not the end of the world, but you don't want people trying to click on it. The other button, which is still showing, we now need to hide on desktop. And there you go. So of course you can leave it as it was, but if you wanted to list the email up here, this is how you do it. Again, I'll just go through the callers as well, just to really sort of try and make clear what we're doing here. We've just duplicated the button. We're going to hide it on tablet and mobile because we're going to remove the tel colon and phone number. As you can see there, I've done the international version of the number just to show how that would be done. And we're just going to list the phone number here. And that's just a different way of doing it. If I was going to list the phone number there, obviously, you'd make it look a little bit more broken down, easier to read. Obviously on desktop, it's unlikely that somebody is going to click on a call button. My browser, funnily enough, does sync with my Android device because it's Google Chrome, but I don't know anybody that uses it. I certainly don't. So there you go. They are the different ways that you can set contact options, how you can list the detail, how you can make buttons, and how you can show them on different device types. If you want to add social media accounts, you would simply put the URL of your account pages for the respective social media platform where it says link. Pretty straightforward. The links here, if you want to alter the titles, and of course the links and where they go. We covered this a little bit in the last video, but I'll just go over it again. Obviously there, you could add, this is a menu anchor. If you're wondering why home's there, it's simply there because it looks odd without it. It just looks a bit bare. Whilst it's a single page website and it will never be clicked because home is the landing page and it is the web page. It just is something that when I take it off, it doesn't look right. Again, you would press that X button there on the left. So we've covered menu anchors in the last video. I'm just demonstrating there that they're still working, obviously, and how you might alter them. Again, here, if you want to change what obviously in this case is a rectangle logo, you may have designed a different one, you may have got playful with Canva, you can use border radius under style. And I actually think I'm going to leave that. I think that looks a little better. So at the bottom of the toolbar, you'll see the desktop icon. Click on it and then select tablet, and it will alter the screen to a tablet version of the website. So this is what your website will look like on a portrait tablet screen. As you can see, because we've added those extra icon lists widgets in the top half of the header, the spacing's off. What's wrong there is the widget spacing in the columns. If you click on it, go to the toolbar and then just type in 0 and do that on the other side as well, you should find that it goes back to normal, like so. The other thing is you can see the white bar at the top of the screen. It's obviously not quite right. If you recall, I showed you a workaround of how to add a header with the free version of Elementor. All we need to do is right click on the section, go to advanced, go to margin top. It will actually undo it initially and then just minus it back to, I think it's about -13 on this particular page. It may be different on yours if you've altered the layout, but ultimately you can get the same effect. I'm just checking there that screen, that landing screen, fits the screen of the tablet. You don't want it running off the bottom of there too far, if that makes sense. Looking at the mobile version of the header, and then we'll go back to tablet. I always do the header first on Mobile Optimisation. If you center align the logo and simply reduce the size, it's a little bit too big for that screen real estate. That looks perfect. You'll notice that the buttons for emailers and callers work. It's not showing the other two buttons that we created just for the desktop version that actually lists the phone number and the email. Why? Because they're too big. If you look there, you could see they won't fit. So now if we go back to tablet, we'll just begin making things look equally spaced. To be completely honest, there is no science to mobile optimization, certainly not that I've found. Ultimately, it's trial and error. If you have significantly altered the layout using the different methods that we've worked through on the videos, you may be looking at obviously a very different tablet version than I am now. Don't worry too much. If you just follow what I'm doing and apply it to your site and your sections, you'll find that you can dramatically affect how it renders. You'll find you're doing a lot with padding and margins. More padding actually. I would stick to padding more so without going into a technical explanation of the difference between the two, tend to stick to padding. But as you can see, there are different ways to alter how this renders on that landing screen. Then I've used the widget space again. Here, let me show you a little trick with HTML. If you type BR within the two arrows, it actually stands for break, it's HTML. And what it does is it puts the text on the next line, it breaks the line, so to speak. I'm just going to trial that and see how it looks. Can I make this look good? I think the answer is no, actually. I don't like how that goes onto the second line. It looks odd with the heading underneath. So I'm actually going to remove it. And there we go. I think that's probably the best. The only thing I think we need to do is keep it on one line, and I'm going to reduce the font size. So through trial and error, I think I've realised that there's no way to get that heading on one line. And the only way I think is to probably go to Style, Title, Typography, and then reduce the size just ever so slightly. And if we're going to reduce that size, we need to reduce the size of the one underneath, just so it looks proportionate. And there we go. So if we carry on down the site, when I created this single page template, I did put a lot of effort into mobile optimization to make it as simple as possible for those that maybe are beginners to, well, web design, let alone Elementor. So as you can see, it's all actually quite neat and tidy. If for whatever reason like I say, if you've altered the layout quite significantly, you may want to refer back to those videos, because they would have what you might regard as a slightly deeper dive into how we got these effects in the first place. What you can also do, much like we did on the desktop on the contact section, is you can duplicate sections and then just show them. You may want to reduce the text slightly and just show that on tablet. So you could essentially have copy for desktop, which is maybe the most copy you would use. You might have a little less copy on a tablet render. So here, if you see, we're not showing the bigger of the two text elements. We've actually hidden it, and now we're showing the tablet version, so to speak. We can then use the duplicate functionality just to copy that across. So I guess, again, if you find yourself with a situation where there's too much text, it's congested, you feel it's not particularly pleasant to read or indeed browse, you could use these different tools to show different things on different device types. I actually think all that looks pretty good. Let's just check that those buttons for email and call are working. If you hover over them, the cursor should change, as you would expect, and it is doing. Meaning that if somebody clicks on those, it should automatically open an email on the device and pre-populate the to with the email address that you configured it with. So if we go back to mobile, the first thing to note is that in the header, while we just check that those buttons also work, it looks like the social links do, so everything's working. But in the header, I've actually removed the navigation links. That's because the free version of Elementor, if you recall in earlier videos, certainly in the creation of the single page template videos, I explained it does not come with the functionality to create an actual header, which means that when you get the mobile version using the free version, you don't get a hamburger menu. A hamburger menu is the little 3 lines. If you look in the toolbar in Elementor to the top left, there is an example of one. So normally those navigation links would fold up into a hamburger menu. They don't in the free version, and there's not a lot we can do about that. So I think the best thing to do is just remove them. On a single page site, that for me is fine, because I don't know about you, but I wouldn't use them anyway. On a single page site on my mobile, I would just scroll with my finger, and I think that's what 99% of people do. And for that reason, I actually think it actually works quite well. It works in our favour. I also think it's a more elegant header on the mobile. I think it's a bit cleaner, it's not cluttered. and that's good. That's all part of that less is more approach that we've talked about in previous videos. Here I'm just showing how you could use the columns gap drop down on the section. If you do that, you'll affect the columns gap on all device types. If you use padding, as I'm showing here, it doesn't affect them on tablet and desktop if you've changed it on mobile. The way you know you're doing the mobile padding is if you're looking left in the toolbar, the little mobile icon is glowing in blue. My advice with text, particularly on a mobile, is to make sure that there is enough space around it so that it's easy to read. If the entirety of this section was a white background, this would be fine. You wouldn't need to alter it. I mean, certainly use the width of the screen, but because of that image behind, I just think you need to bring that text in a little bit, just so it's a little easier on the eye. Well, let me also show you how you can change the background images for device types. So if you look there, we can select an image for mobile. Notice how the mobile icon is glowing blue. We can select different images. Obviously some will look worse than others. If you don't select one, it will just default to the desktop choice. Let me just faff around with the spacing here. If you're anything like me, you probably don't like the fact that that divider's not equidistant between the text above and the title below. I'm going to pull the title below up a little, and then I'm going to push the divider down. And if you notice, I'm not using the divider, which does have a slider on the content tab for gap. I'm just going to use the padding above. The padding on the top padding on the divider. That's just an easier way to do it, because I only want to change the distance above, the gap above, not below as well. Hopefully just watching what I'm doing and watching the trial and error nature of it, you'll realise that if it's proving to take a little while, there's nothing, I wouldn't say there's anything wrong with that. I'd say that's actually entirely normal. I usually allow a couple of hours to optimize a single page site. It depends if I've used previous work. So if I have pulled a template in, like for example, this isn't taking a couple of hours clearly because all the work was put into in the creation of the single page template. But if, as I say, you've significantly altered your design and it is taking some doing and it's maybe a little frustrating because you can't quite get the effect you want, just persevere. Don't try and do it all in one sweep. As you know, I always talk about passes. Maybe get obviously the desktop's all done. We know that's spaced and looking pretty nice. Just do the tablet version. You may just go through and do the header to start with. I always just do the header. I would do the footer as well, but on this particular design, the footer doesn't alter much between devices. It doesn't usually anyway, only if you've got a footer area, and that's something that you put above it. You may have seen websites where above the footer there is sort of like 4 columns with further information, and it's usually coloured the same as the footer. On this particular website, we haven't got that, so we don't need to worry. So do the header, and then just go to tablet and just work through it, and don't try and do it all in one go. That whole thing of stepping away, whatever that does, and then coming back, you will see things in a different light. So like I said, when we check the links on the tablet, obviously we've just done the same here. I'm just actually altering the copy. You will do that. That is a minor tweak. It's that thing I just mentioned, that you go away, you come back, and suddenly you just see something, be it copy or a distance or a spacing or a colour. You just think, what on earth was I thinking? On this, I think I'm just going to change it to something a little bit more appropriate for a call button. So if we scroll back, if we have a look, we should only be showing the call button and the email button, as we did when we set those up on the desktop version at the start of this video. I hope that makes sense. Assuming that you've got through this, you may sometimes find at the bottom, or actually on any text editor widget, did you notice the space there underneath? It sometimes just does it for no reason. If you click on it and go into the toolbar, and you go to the text tab and then just press return, don't touch the code, it will just get rid of it. So now that you've been through your entire site, you've optimized it to look good on all devices, you've got the power and knowledge to add different types of button, hopefully you feel happy. Save the changes by updating.